There is a strange silence when you look at yourself in the mirror after shedding silent tears. Your face is swollen, red, and your eyes are blurred. Yet, what surprises you most is not the visible exhaustion. It's a deep, unsettling sensation, as if you're gazing at someone completely different. Not the woman you once tried to protect, adorn, or please, but a soul that has just shed its old shell, standing exposed before an undeniable truth. You can no longer be the person you used to be. Carl Jung once said, "The soul longs not for perfection or others' validation, but for wholeness, the harmony between the social self and the deep inner being." But to reach this wholeness, there is an inevitable stage, the breaking. It's when all masks come off, the polite smiles, the hesitant nods, the times you said "I'm okay" while your soul quietly shattered inside. Everything suddenly feels too heavy, too false to bear. You find yourself drained, without the strength to perform, no longer caring to ease others' comfort, or feeling the need to be pleasant, appropriate, or just right. And in that weariness, a journey begins. Not a journey to become the woman others desire, but to become the woman you choose to be. This is the process Jung called individuation, withdrawing from external expectations, listening to your inner voice, remembering who you truly are, and rebuilding yourself from within, quietly, without applause, but deeply, firmly, and irrevocably. Stay with me. Let's walk through those moments of vulnerability together and find the real strength inside. I'm here to walk this journey with you. First, the journey of becoming oneself, moving beyond shadows and masks. Many women spend their whole lives chasing love, never once living as their authentic selves. They are praised for their sacrifice, their gentleness, and obedience. But deep inside their souls is a silent sigh no one hears. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." This is no romantic ideal. It is a wake-up call, a whisper cutting through the many layers of identity women have worn for centuries. From the obedient daughter who smiles at the right moment, to the sensual lover who knows how to please, to the perfect mother who always puts others first. These are not false versions of self, but without awareness, they become suffocating masks for the soul. In Jung's analytical psychology, these social roles are archetypes, primordial images in the collective unconscious. Archetypes like the mother, the maiden, the lover, and the caregiver serve as internal maps guiding us through life. But when one archetype is exaggerated or becomes a person's sole identity, they lose their sense of wholeness. A woman trapped in the role of self-sacrificing mother may forget she is also a lover, a creator, a risk-taker. A woman living entirely as the good girl may struggle to say no, unable to express anger, and slowly learns to live in silence inside herself. One of the clearest signs of this inner suffocation is the ongoing conflict between the outer image and the inner voice. Many successful, admired, beloved women quietly ache in solitude, unsure why they feel empty inside, because what they are living is not their essence, but their persona. Jung described the persona as the individual's system of adaptation, the way one assumes a role to navigate the world. The persona helps us function socially, but if we cling to it too long, we forget the face beneath it. Then one day, the shadow emerges. Jung defined the shadow as the rejected, suppressed, and unacceptable parts of the human soul. The shadow holds our repressed anger, denied envy, condemned sensuality, and silenced wildness. For women, This shadow is often filled with emotions labeled as too much, too sensitive, too strong, too independent, too emotional, to be loved. Many women learn to hide their darkness until it grows too large, too powerful, and explodes into crisis. This eruption may appear as unexplained depression, inner tension within a seemingly perfect relationship, or a breakdown after great success. As Jung wrote in Psychology and Alchemy, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. When the shadow remains unrecognized, it rules us from the darkness." The true journey begins when a woman stops fearing her shadow and starts dialoguing with it. She allows herself to feel anger without guilt, acknowledges desire without shame, learns to say no, to not want, and to step back from roles she once believed were her destiny. A woman awakening psychologically will experience turbulent days, no longer who she was, but not yet who she is. This liminal space of transformation is where masks fall, relationships shift, and the inner world becomes a chaotic construction site. Yet it is also the moment when a new self begins to breathe. The truth is, darkness is not the enemy. It is the guide, Jung said. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. It is by stepping into the places we fear most, where we feel not good enough, unlovable, too much, that we unlock wholeness. The miracle is this: when a woman dares to accept her shadow, she unleashes a true life force. She becomes deeper, more compassionate, more powerful, and radiant in a way that cannot be learned or faked. I recall a woman who shared her story with me. She was a perfect wife, gentle, proper, always putting others first. But after a sudden divorce, she panicked and began therapy. Through this process, she faced a painful truth she had never lived for herself. She learned to journal, to spend time alone in the forest, to try painting, to scream, to cry. Finally, she said, "I don't know who this woman is, but she feels more alive than ever." That was her true self, long hidden beneath the shadow, now slowly released, layer by layer. When a woman moves beyond shadow and masks, she does not become a better version to please others. She does not become a copy of any ideal archetype. She becomes herself, messy, complex, sometimes unpredictable, but always real. And that truth, once lived, emits an energy those around her can feel. An unnamed magnetic presence, not because she is perfect, but because she is honest to the bone. In today's world, where images are meticulously edited, emotions standardized, and women constantly told how they should be, this journey of facing shadow, removing masks, and choosing oneself is revolutionary. A woman who dares to walk into her darkness to reclaim her light transforms not only her life, but the world around her. Perhaps this is the kind of woman everyone wants near, not because she seeks love, but because she chooses to love the truth of who she is. Number 2, the awakening moment from suffering to rebirth. When masks have fallen, and the shadow is no longer avoided, but looks straight in the eye, the woman crosses a new threshold, not one of peace, but of the ruins of the old self, slowly collapsing. This is the phase Jung never sugar-coated. The process of individuation begins not with comfort, but crisis. The real question is, have you ever fallen so deeply that you were forced to meet yourself again? For many women, rebirth begins with a psychological shock that feels like destruction, an unexpected divorce, a cold farewell after years of effort, a betrayal by a friend, or quietly, a morning when she wakes without a single reason to get out of bed. What seemed like mere feelings reaches the root where every role, expectation, and habit suddenly feels hollow. In that moment of loss, when all external supports collapse, the deepest self begins to speak. As Jung wrote in The Undiscovered Self, the individual seeking answers to the problem of evil needs first and foremost self-knowledge. In darkness, pain. In evil lies the hidden opportunity to understand oneself. Perhaps you have been in that dark room where no one calls, where silence stretches so long that you begin to hear your soul. You may think you are lonely, but in truth, you are meeting someone important who has long been forgotten you. In Jung's philosophy, this is the starting point of what he called inner alchemy, not escape from pain, but transformation of pain into awakening. Just as classical alchemy turns lead into gold, inner alchemy transforms collapse into strength, wounds into doors of the soul. A woman once wrote to the program, sharing that she had lived a proper life: husband, children, a stable job, and a proud family. But one morning, after the kids left for school and her husband left for work, she sat at the breakfast table and burst into tears. Not for a specific reason, just an emptiness so frightening it made her tremble. Soon after, she sank into deep depression. But instead of taking medication to return to normal, she began writing. She recorded hidden feelings, buried dreams, the time she said yes, when she wanted to scream no. While reading Jung, she encountered this line: "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." She cried again, because for the first time, her pain was allowed to exist. If you are reading this and your heart tightens, if you are going through something asking why me, then perhaps this is not your collapse. Perhaps this is your beginning. In Jung's system, the soul does not sleep forever. At some point, it rises and demands to live fully. Often it chooses to awaken through pain's touch. What's fascinating is Jung never urged people to move on quickly or stay positive. He believed true transformation happens when we remain with ourselves through chaos, through wreckage. Because the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. To face oneself in moments of greatest weakness is not defeat, it is the gateway to inner power. An awakened woman is not one who is always strong. She is one who knows what it means to fall. She has lain curled up without anyone calling. She has asked for help and received only silence. She has loved others so deeply that she lost herself. But in those unseen nights, she is reborn from the ruins, not through rage, but with a quiet commitment. From now on, I will not abandon myself again. Do you remember a time when you thought you had hit rock bottom, yet somehow rose again? That was no accident. That was the sacred alchemy Jung described a transformation, beginning not with denial or illusion, but with acceptance of truth. In darkness, loneliness, and confusion, your soul learns to say, "I am mine." It's ironic how many believe an attractive woman is one who never breaks down, never cries, never shows weakness. But those who have shattered, who have dared to sit alone with their pain, possess a healing energy that cannot be faked. They don't speak with words. They speak with presence. No persuasion needed. No effort to impress. Because their soul has been melted down and reshaped from within. And as Jung wrote, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. The greatest gift of life is not to be loved. It is to become yourself. If you are now in the gray zone where the old has collapsed and the new has not yet formed, don't rush for an exit. Stay, feel, write, scream if you must. Like a master alchemist at the furnace, you are forging your true self. And in that red fire, a woman is born not from ideals, but from ashes. You are so close. You may not see it yet, but something within you is shifting. This is not the end. This is the beginning of the miracle. Number 3, the rise of the integrated woman, the archetype of the whole feminine. After the storm, while ashes still smolder in her chest, something strange begins. This woman no longer seeks rescue. She no longer hopes for someone to pull her from the abyss. She no longer writes long messages to hold on to fractured relationships. She begins to do something once felt impossible, and she stays with herself. It's not a dramatic decision, but a quiet, profound shift, a movement from within, as if the soul has stopped pleading and started to speak in its own voice. Have you ever felt that a morning when you no longer care what others think, and all you want is to be honest with your heart? That is the moment a woman begins to rise from within as a new whole, a version of herself that no longer lives to please, but to stay true to her essence. Jung called this the transition from the persona, the social self, to the self, the center of the soul. When a woman sheds false layers and returns to her core, she is no longer a product of expectation. She becomes a sovereign being, no longer needing to be loved to feel worthy. She becomes love itself through the way she exists. A woman like this doesn't need to force strength. She doesn't need to prove anything. She knows when to speak and when to stay silent. She can be soft without being weak, firm without being cruel, because she has made peace with both her light and her shadow, no longer fragmented, no longer at war with herself. In Jung's world, she lives in psychic integration, a union of the soul. And this gives her a quiet magnetism no one can define, but everyone feels. Jung's concepts of anima and animus are especially important to understanding this transformation. According to him, within every soul lives an inner opposite. Men carry the feminine archetype, while women carry the masculine animus. When a woman hasn't matured her animus, she often seeks men to compensate for a lack of direction, autonomy, or strength. She may fall into unequal relationships where the other becomes a savior, a guide, or the one who makes her feel valuable. But when the animus is integrated, she no longer needs a father or a hero. She seeks an equal partner. In his research into the phenomenology of the self, Jung wrote, "The animus corresponds to the paternal logos just as the anima corresponds to the maternal eros. This means when a woman develops her animus, she connects not only to reason, boundaries, and direction, but also learns to think for herself, to make decisions, to chart her own course. She no longer needs someone to rescue her from her emotions. She has learned how to stand within them and act not from pain, but from awareness." I once met a woman like that after many years in a marriage where she had to shrink herself to keep the peace. She finally chose to leave, not because she hated her husband, but because she no longer wanted to betray herself. When I asked what gave her strength, she simply said, "I've been with myself long enough to no longer want to abandon myself." That is the sign of a mature animus, not loud, not combative, but a clarity so profound no one can shake it. If you're on this journey, you may feel everything around you is changing. People who once felt close may now feel distant. Relationships that once felt essential now feel shallow. Don't panic. It doesn't mean you're wrong. It means your frequency is shifting. And when a woman begins to live in truth, anything no longer rooted in truth naturally falls away. The most beautiful part is this: such a woman is not captivating because of her looks or clever words. She moves people with her presence. In every glance, step, and silence, she carries a grounded strength only someone who has walked through the depths can possess. And that is something you cannot fake. Truth doesn't need to shout. It radiates in silence, in the way you hold space for yourself. And from that, hold space for others. Jung once said, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. A whole woman is not someone who has removed her weaknesses, or only keeps the acceptable parts. She is someone who has learned to stand with both her tenderness and ferocity, her longing and peace. And because of that, she no longer lives to be chosen. She lives because she has chosen herself. Do you feel something changing in you? Maybe it's not yet clear. But if there is a part of you that has stopped trying to please, that no longer asks for permission to exist, know that the whole woman within you is rising not from perfection, but from radical honesty, not to be loved, but because she has chosen to love herself. And perhaps that is the kind of woman everyone longs to be near, not because she needs them, but because she has become herself, and that is enough. Number 4. The power of refusal and true magnetism. Why is she desired by everyone? Not all light is dazzling. Some women enter a room without glamorous clothes, without a loud voice, without trying to attract attention, yet everyone turns to look. She does nothing dramatic, but her presence shifts the space. A quiet energy flows from her, a magnetism no one can explain. Look closely, and you'll see it is the power of truth. She is not the most beautiful in the room, not the sweetest, most agreeable, or easiest to please. She does not try to be liked, and she certainly does not care about approval. That is exactly what sets her apart. Jung never said a woman should abandon her desire to be loved. He pointed out that when we prioritize being loved over being real, we lose ourselves. A whole woman doesn't need to be liked to feel worthy. As Jung wrote in The Development of Personality, the most important question anyone can ask is, what myth am I living? She doesn't live according to someone else's myth. She lives the story her soul is writing. Have you ever met a woman who doesn't apologize for her emotions? She doesn't hide her tears, doesn't mask her joy or sorrow. She doesn't flinch when her voice trembles with feeling. She doesn't fear when her gaze turns cold if needed. That is a sign of integration. She's not acting strong. She has truly been to hell and back. She doesn't pretend to be fine. She's been broken and reborn. Now, the cracks in her are the places where light enters. Carl Jung once said, "Only the wounded physician heals. The one who can truly heal is the one who has carried their wounds." The whole woman is living proof of that. She doesn't use strength to dominate. She uses experience to create a safe space. She doesn't need to be better than anyone, doesn't need to win, doesn't need to prove anything. She doesn't refuse to assert herself. She refuses because she knows the worth of her energy. She knows how to say no. She sets boundaries. She doesn't trade her peace of mind to avoid upsetting others. She doesn't silence her intuition to keep the peace. Most importantly, she no longer apologizes for her depth. She no longer says, "I know I think too much," or "Sorry if I made you uncomfortable because I'm sensitive." Those were once tickets to acceptance and love. Now she understands her depth is not a flaw. It is a gift. Real attraction doesn't come from fitting neatly into someone's preferences. It comes from inner wholeness. When a woman guards her boundaries, the universe rearranges itself around her. Those who once exploited her find themselves shut out. Relationships held together by people-pleasing begin to fade. But in return, she draws in those who have also walked their path, those with depth, honesty, and willingness to show up fully. If you are learning to say no, if your hands tremble as you hold boundaries, you are getting very close to yourself. You are becoming dangerous in the most beautiful way. Dangerous to systems that once demanded your smallness. Dangerous to loves that ask for your permission to exist. Above all, you are becoming irresistibly magnetic in a way no one can fake. Jung wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." Clarity doesn't come from others' gaze. It comes from daring to look inward and not turning away. The woman desired by everyone isn't chasing anyone's gaze. She has chosen to face herself and to stay. And you, if you are on this path, know this. Every time you say no when you mean no, every time you stop apologizing for honest emotions, every time you hold yourself back from people-pleasing, you are becoming that woman. Not everyone will understand. Not everyone will like it. But your energy will reach those meant to feel it. Once you are honest with yourself, the magnetism you radiate will need no explanation. Number 5. Restructuring life and worldview. The magnetism of an honest woman is not only in her quiet beauty, but in the silent shift happening within her world. When a woman dares to set boundaries, dares to reject what no longer aligns with her truth, what follows is not just respect from others, it is a complete restructuring. Her relationships, her way of living, and most profoundly, the belief system she once held as absolute all transform. Have you ever felt that once you live truthfully, the entire world around you changes at first? That change doesn't feel good. It's often painful. Those once close may begin to drift. Relationships that once meant everything suddenly feel shallow. Friends stop calling like before. Family might say, "You've changed." And they are right, just not as they think. The loss is real. Jung understood this deeply. In The Undiscovered Self, he wrote, "To rest in the comfort zone of collective opinion is to evade the call of individuation." When you begin individuation, you no longer belong to the collective you came from. Your soul calls you to a new place where honesty matters more than fitting in. I remember a guest once shared on the show, after leaving a 12-year relationship, she felt as if she had stepped into an empty desert. Not only did she lose her partner, she also drifted from mutual friends, her in-laws, and the routines that once defined her life. But in that desert, she began to hear things she had never heard before, her inner voice. "I'm no longer afraid of silence," she said, "because in it, for the first time, I heard myself." Strangely, when you stop holding on to what no longer fits, you begin to attract what truly does. Not surface-level friendships, not people you must contort yourself for, but soul-aligned beings. Other women on the same journey back to themselves. They don't compete. They don't try to win. They don't rush to offer hollow advice. They listen. They show up. They cry with you unashamedly. They celebrate when you dare to speak your truth. Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity, the mysterious way the universe rearranges itself to match your inner frequency. When you transform from within, your old worldview collapses. You stop believing everything must be logically understood to be valid. Intuition sharpens. You dream more. And your dreams stop being chaotic nonsense. They become symbols, messages. Jung believed dreams are the small hidden door into the deepest, most intimate sanctum of the soul. A woman amid awakening begins to realize that wisdom is not knowing everything. It is learning to listen to what she doesn't yet understand. She listens to dreams, her body, and the strange emotions that rise when she enters a room or hears a certain melody. From there, she lives by an internal compass, not an external schedule. As she goes deeper, she recognizes the archetypes moving within her. When she feels creatively alive, passionate, and sensually grounded, perhaps the lover archetype is activated. When she longs to nurture and support others, the mother archetype is speaking. When she feels drawn to solitude and contemplation, withdrawing from the crowd, it is the wise woman guiding her. These archetypes are no longer molds to conform to, but living languages helping her understand herself and navigate her path. Do you feel you no longer want to explain your changes? Do you feel yourself beginning to trust an intuition you once dismissed? If so, you are very close to the heart of transformation. Don't be afraid if old connections don't understand you. Don't panic if you no longer feel at home in places that once felt familiar. The boredom you feel with the old is a sign you are stepping into something more real. Jung once said, "We cannot change anything unless we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. Change doesn't come from forcing yourself to become someone else. It begins with the courage to accept that you've already changed." From there, everything begins to restructure, not around others' expectations, but around the truth within you. A woman restructuring her life doesn't need elaborate plans. She begins by saying yes to what feels right, by rearranging her living space, by stepping outside alone in the early morning, by writing down her dreams, by accepting that she is no longer who she used to be, and letting go of the hope that others will understand. This kind of restructuring isn't an earthquake. It's a quiet series of small, consistent, irreversible shifts. And that is how she steps into her real life. No longer borrowing beliefs, no longer living someone else's dream. Every step, whether uncertain or alone, is a step toward a world where she is fully herself, needing no permission to be. Number 6. Integrating the inner archetypes. The lover, the mother, the magician, the maiden. When a woman begins to walk to the rhythm of her own steps, no longer chasing the applause of others, she enters a deeper layer of the journey. It's no longer about escaping the old. It's about weaving together the fragmented pieces within her into a living, breathing whole. This is no longer an effort to shed old roles, but a conscious choice to live as a full symphony where every facet of her is acknowledged, listened to, and allowed to coexist without conflict. Jung called this an essential part of individuation, the integration of inner archetypes. One mistake many women make not because they're wrong, but because they've been taught to, is believing they must be only one thing: a good mother, a sweet lover, a beautiful wife, or a modest daughter. They choose a role often the most easily loved, most socially accepted, and abandon the rest. But each archetype isn't a fixed box. It's a stream of energy waiting to be activated, fluid, dynamic, and meant to co-create the psychological landscape of a whole human being. Within every woman live multiple archetypes. She might be the lover sensual, passionate, drawn to beauty, unafraid to seek joy. The mother nurturing, patient, compassionate, a safe place to land. The magician or wise woman deeply intuitive, drawn to solitude, with a timeless perspective. The maiden free-spirited, curious, creative, and rich with wonder. These archetypes don't cancel each other out. On the contrary, they are all facets of the same being. I once spoke with a woman in her 50s, a former CEO of a major tech company. For years, she embodied the magician and mother archetypes: rational, sharp, tending both to her team and her family. But after a health crisis, she said she began to feel burned out inside. She started taking belly dance classes, went to figure drawing sessions, wrote love letters to herself. She laughed and said, "I realized there's still a playful young girl in me. That part's not dead." And it wasn't. Her lover and maiden archetypes weren't there to replace her previous roles. They were awakening to expand her inner terrain, helping her live more fully, more truthfully. Carl Jung believed psychological freedom doesn't come from cutting away parts we don't need. It comes from allowing all parts of ourselves to coexist without shame, without war. True maturity doesn't mean choosing one side, but reconciling opposites within. You can crave sensuality and also enjoy quiet nights reading philosophy. You can nurture your children and also need space where no one needs you. You can laugh loudly at a party and cry quietly to a song at midnight. And most importantly, you don't have to apologize for any of it. If you've ever felt disoriented by inner contradictions, don't worry. That's a good sign. It means your archetypes are waking up sometimes all at once. Don't rush to choose just one. Start by listening. One day you may feel the urge to create something beautiful. That's the lover guiding you. On another day, you may crave silence and ancient books. That's the magician whispering. Another day you may want to lie on the floor and doodle. That's the maiden. And when someone needs you, the mother will emerge without being summoned. You are all of these. You are allowed to be all of them. A woman who integrates her archetypes no longer asks, "Who should I be to be loved?" She asks, "Which part of me needs to come alive today?" That question not only frees her from societal pressure, it unlocks creative energy in art, in work, in how she loves, speaks, and shows up. She no longer tries to be the ideal woman. She becomes a vibrant, uncontainable being, fluid, radiant, and uncaged. Jung wrote a line I deeply love in Memories, Dreams, Reflections. Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. Wholeness doesn't come from slicing away what we dislike. It comes from weaving together everything we are, and you. If you've read this far, pause for a moment and ask yourself, is there a part of me I've neglected for too long? Is there an archetype knocking, asking to be lived through me again? If the answer is yes, open the door. The path to becoming a whole woman is not a straight line. It is a dance between the parts of your soul, and you are the choreographer. You don't need permission. You don't need perfection. You only need honesty and the courage to be all that you are without shame. That is true freedom. Perhaps the most beautiful and difficult part of becoming a whole woman is not learning something new, but having the courage to peel away everything that isn't you. The layers of be nice, be agreeable, be lovable, be selfless once kept you safe, helped you belong, but at some point, they became a prison. And the moment you say enough, not with rage, but with clarity, is the moment you begin to become the woman you want to be, not the woman someone else expected. You don't need to be the woman everyone desires. The truth is, the most deeply loved women are often those who never tried to be. She simply lives so truthfully that she cannot be ignored. And then she begins to attract the right things, the right people, the right love, not because she performs, but because she has chosen herself. There is a strange stillness in the eyes of a woman who knows who she is when she stands before the mirror. Not to adjust herself to someone else's preferences, but simply to look and smile. Because the woman in the reflection is someone she once dreamed of becoming. Not perfect, not untouched by sadness, not always strong, but honest, whole, and no longer asking for permission to exist. Carl Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." You cannot step into the deepest version of yourself by chasing false positivity. You must pass through the dark. You must embrace the pain. You must touch the things you once buried. And it is from that place that you truly begin to shine, not with borrowed brilliance, but with a light kindled from within. If you are somewhere in the middle of this journey, if things feel messy, if you still feel lost or doubtful, you are not alone. We are a generation of women waking up together, laying down old burdens together, choosing ourselves not out of fear, but out of love. Every time you speak your truth, every time you set a boundary, every time you stop criticizing yourself, that's a small shockwave sent into the collective unconscious, where thousands of other women wait for someone to do it first. When one woman heals, she doesn't heal just for herself. She heals for her mother, for her daughter, for those who never had words for their pain. She opens a path not only for herself, but for those who come after her. Every step you take toward yourself is a step that lights the way for someone else. So even if this road feels lonely, even if you think you're not strong enough, remember this: you are never walking alone. Behind you is a river of women returning to themselves. Ahead of you is the full version of who you are becoming. And in this very moment, all you have to do is choose yourself. And the world will begin to rearrange to reflect that choice. You were never meant to live small. You were never meant to ask for permission. You are here to live truthfully, to live fully. Start now. Start with you. If this touched your heart, drop a comment below and let me know. Don't forget to subscribe to join me on this journey.